The last door has opened, and the main enemy has appeared. Our hero, Bak Hinu, will deal with him. All citizens are invited to evacuate the battlefield. Repeat on international global broadcast. The last door has opened, and the main enemy has appeared. All citizens are invited to evacuate the battlefield. There was an explosion in a tall building. The door opened. The windows flew out. A crack ran through the building, and a voice like white noise sounded. The main monster crawled out of the door. It was an incredibly large skeleton, perhaps even taller than the tall building it had just destroyed. It was dressed in a gray robe through which its bones and several bones could be seen. "Your enemy, the warrior, is already looking at you," asked the skeleton. In front of him stood a tall man with a respectful look. He was the last hero, Binghu, who wore no armor, only a sword. "What do I have to fear from death?" asked the brave child. The respected hero, Binghu, charged towards the monster, shouting that he had lost that fear long ago. Binghu flew towards death at an incredible speed, realizing all he had to do was kill his opponent and finally close that door. He was very close to the skeleton and managed to dodge it in mid-flight. Death merely extended its bony hand, hoping to stop him. "Your end has come," yelled the skeleton. Without hesitation or tension, Binghu said, "Curious." The blow was precise. A blue swirl took him to a distant place. Here, the last hero ended the skeleton. Just before dying, Beck appeared, flying towards the skeleton with his sword ready. This time, the monster didn't notice. The hero's eyes were filled with confidence and courage. He swung his sword sharply and violently towards the ray. Thanks to this, the skeleton was shattered by the shockwave. The hero's victory over the villain is a very mundane result. If you are the hero of all humanity, you will close the door and become a legend of mankind. Glory awaits you, said the skeleton. "Hero, legend, I don't care," replied Binghu indifferently. "I'm going to die, but I want you to save the world. You are a special warrior," said the woman. There was blood on her hands. She held a woman drowning in her own tears. It was a dark night with a full moon. There were countless dead and swords stuck in the ground. "I realize I've been a burden. Hero, you must protect everyone," a comrade applauded. "We need you, warrior," someone shouted. "I'm a hero and a warrior, and I'm tired," said Binghu. The hero's sword was at the skeleton's face. Binghu's face showed no joy after destroying the enemy. There was no face on it. The hero was depressed and tired. "Let's kill ourselves," suggested Death, thinking that this would finally free him from this fate. "Still, I couldn't protect the person I loved most," said Beck. "Now I've fulfilled my destiny and I can die in peace," thought Beck. The end he had long awaited approached. Beck closed his eyes. "Finally, you won't need to hold a sword in your hands anymore." "Oh, he's awake, our glorious little master," said a male voice. Beck opened his eyes and saw the gigantic face of a man with long gray hair staring at him with his small green eyes. Beck was scared. "I'm being attacked by a giant." A white-gloved hand touched his cheek. "I died closing the door." Beck grabbed the giant's finger that had touched his cheek. "Look at this, lady," said the white-haired giant. Little Raleigh was gripping his finger so tightly. In front of Beck stood that gray-haired giant and a smiling blonde girl in a bright orange dress. The boy extended his arms in front of him. "And you've woken the baby. That's why he's like this," the blonde girl explained. "Look, Riley isn't even crying," stretching her arms forward. Beck was surprised. "Whose little hands are these?" And Riley exclaimed, "How cute! He's already showing his talents," said the girl. "Maybe they're just memories from my childhood." Beck tried to calm down. After all, he was the youngest son of the great swordsman, the Count, and Peta, who was a baby lying in a crib covered with a soft pink blanket. "I'm in a strange world." The hero was still in panic. "So this woman said something about an eye pie," the warrior continued, reflecting. Raleigh seemed to be waking up. "Are you ready to accept the sword's blessing?" A strange new man addressed Beck. "I'm the swordmaster. You are my youngest son. We and Peta are a family of great swordmasters. The sword's blessing is a very important and long-awaited ritual for each of our children," the man told him. He seemed to be the Count of Ipet. He was tall, had gray hair and brown eyes. Beck's face, however, was shocked. Several people started expressing their opinions and asking questions. "Yes, I see him getting his first sword. You've already polished Raleigh's sword. Another heir will become a master swordsman and the pride of his father," the man exclaimed. Beck was horrified. He had promised himself in his past life that he would never touch a sword again, and now he was reborn into a family of swordmasters. What does this mean? Why am I doing this? Swords flew down towards little Beck. "Swords? What are you doing?" 3 swords were thrown at Raleigh at the same time. Beck was hit by post-traumatic stress disorder. "Those are real swords." "Oh, the young master seems excited. He can't wait to wield his first sword," said a redhead. "What are you talking about?" Beck thought. "Look at young Raid," said one of the girls excitedly. He already likes the sword. These idiots don't understand anything. I hate it. The swords responded, Beck. Little Raid began to cry. He was so upset thinking about the sword. I swore I would never touch a sword again. The man did not calm down. Reborn in the body of a child, he retained the memory of his past life. When will death take me? Shouted Beck. 19 years later, is the family and Piet choosing an heir? Someone finally asked. Another answered. The people were partying, drinking, chatting, and having fun. The family of Ipe has the blessing of the sword. So far, none of their children has reached mastery. Lon, the eldest son of Fenapolit, a tall young man, very much like his father, serious and calm, with gray eyes. He follows the path of pure power as a famous monster hunter. And the middle son of the family, Appelé, is Joy, a smiling young redhead with deep blue eyes. Joy is incomparable in agility and speed. He can cut drops of water in the act, said the boy. What about the third son? You said you had 3 sons, the man asked. Yes, 3, but I don't talk about the third son just because he grew up completely useless, the boy explained. What do you mean? The son of the Count of Paleta has no sword skills. The interlocutor was surprised. He's lazy. Disgrace to the Count, the boy replied. There was a man sitting near the 2 boys drinking a beer. He could hear their conversation and didn't like hearing what was being said about the third prince. The man had long gray hair. They say that when the sword blessing ritual was celebrated, he grabbed it, the interlocutor objected. Tisk, that's probably just a story. I can't even say he'll do well in this life, the boy replied. The gray-haired man sitting next to him suddenly slammed his beer mug on the table, startling the boy. How dare you, commoners, the man said. It was clear that he was the same green-eyed man who awakened little Raleigh 19 years ago, only now he wasn't so big. Don't say that again, the old man replied. The young lord is practicing with his sword while you're just swinging a broom. While the prince rested under a tree, humming a tune, he'll show his talent and potential. He won't be worse than his older brothers, shouted the white-haired man. At that moment, the prince was thinking about what clouds resembled. What, like if one of them looked like a hamburger? Don't talk about things you don't understand at all, he continued. Firstly and secondly, he does what he can and is an honest man. The guy looked up and said he liked this new world, but wished there was Coca-Cola. I'll have a Coca-Cola, said Rail. Lately, memories have been chasing me, Beck thought aloud, lying in the grass. Remembering the past, he thought he would forget his past life when he reached a certain age. As old there as he is here now, I never thought it would happen to me. He inadvertently grabbed a sacred sword that no one else could have. The sword-bearer must save humanity from the Demon King. At that moment, I, as such, had disappeared. Now there was only me, the warrior, and I no longer had the right to choose. My destiny was predetermined. So in this life, I'll never grab a sword, Beck promised himself. He felt the grass with his hands and got on all fours, his eyes shining. Never, absolutely never ever grab a sword. Jesus, Rally, someone shouted. It was Han, that gray-haired old man with green eyes. Ah, Han, replied Beck. I knew I'd find you here, said Han. Have you practiced with the sword today? The heir selection will be held very soon. The other families have been invited to observe your skills, young master. They still say I'm an ugly duckling and lazy among my brothers. Why should I do anything for them? Rael yawned. Young master, do you know anything about this? The old man wondered. Then why not try to show everyone you're not lazy because they're right? Relly responded nonchalantly. But how can you? How can you hear that? Yan kept marveling. Don't you want to prove to everyone that you're stronger than your brothers? Rayleigh was about to leave, and Ian tried to stop him. Stronger than what, with laziness? Asked Rayleigh. You're smart, and your reputation. Yan was stunned to hear that. Han, the hero, turned to the old man. I'm sick. I'll never be able to hold a sword. Rael looked disgusted and let out a tear. He couldn't stand it anymore and got angry with the boy. Han, don't listen to what people say. I'm good for nothing. I've learned that from experience. Rael walked cheerfully towards the mansion, but Ian was already holding him by the head. Respectfully, sir, he's only 19, shouted the dejected old man. Lady, the heir's selection process must start soon. The table was set with many dishes and appetizers, and in the center, there was a beautiful candelabrum with 5 candles. Master Raid has to compete with his brothers, you know. Water doesn't flow from a stone, right, Jan? Riley also deserves the honor of being the heir. We should give him a chance. Riley, our family is famous for the best swordsman. You're the son of the great Fenap. The blonde girl in a bright orange dress addressed Raleigh. Ah, now Mom's going to scold me for that, seeing he was upset. But I want my son to be happy, Mom, she started softly. I want the fate of the Ipet family not to be a burden for him and to seek his own happiness. Rael was very happy. Mom rejoiced. Lady, doesn't it make you a little angry? Jan asked. Why would I get angry? The lady asked. The eldest, the middle, and Mr. Ray. There's a difference between them. You wouldn't want to talk about this with young Master Rai, would you? Han asked. Well, Don't listen to what people say, the lady replied calmly. You know how smart he is, the old man continued. He's been talking since he was a baby. Finally I can speak, said little Rally in diapers. Lady, come quickly, Rally has spoken, shouted the maid. Rally is 1 year old, he said. The most talented in the family. I've seen many things in my 60 years, but Mr. Rally is the most talented child I've ever seen. Rally is 2 years old. He learned to read early and soon read the most difficult literature. Are there harder books? Asked Rahl. But you've just read a series of medical treatises. Little Rail, children inclined towards science usually use a pen, not a sword, replied the mother. But still, you are the great family of Ipet, ma'am. Please stay by my side. Yen couldn't calm down. Riley sat at the table, satisfied. Ian and Mom love me a lot and will always protect me, he rejoiced. I'll never have to wield a sword again. Suddenly, blood spurted from the woman's mouth, spreading over her hand and lips. She didn't realize what was happening. Rally turned to his son. The mother was frightened. A pool of blood was already accumulating on her chest. The woman fainted and flew out of her seat. Ma'am, what's happening, ma'am? Ian was worried. Mom, said Rayleigh monotonously. He was surprised. Ma'am, can you hear me? Shouted Guan. Mom! A scream burst from Beck's chest. Ma'am! Han shouted. The white tablecloth where the cheerful and loving mother had just sat was stained with the woman's blood. Wow, I've had such a good life, haven't I? Thought Beck. Ma'am is bleeding, Ian continued. Everyone around me was happy and I didn't need a sword for that. What's happening to my mother? Asked Raid. Beck got up from the table and approached his mother. She was lying on the floor with Ian holding her hands. She looked in distress. Young master, you're coughing blood, exclaimed an agitated old man. We should call— No, first we should administer first aid, said Raid. A red-haired girl in a purple dress stood by the door. The palace was dark, and it was impossible to see her eyes. Finally, said a woman's voice softly, though it sounded rather grave, Beck thought. The woman behind the door smiled sardonically. The one who poisoned my mother and robbed me of a peaceful life forever. Beck now recognized her with certainty. She was a red-haired woman with narrow blue eyes. The second prince looked very much like her. That wretch, hissed Rail, his whole body trembling with rage and hatred, clenching his fists. Young master, stop the bleeding, Yen calmed him. Ian, let me see Mom and go to the— Doctor, said the third prince. But how can you help her? Asked the uncertain old man. Have you forgotten? When I was 5, I read all the medical treatises. I'll administer first aid and take her to her quarters, explained Rail. The woman was sweating, with dark circles under her eyes, and still had bloodstains around her mouth and chest. All right, I'll bring the healer as soon as possible, Ian agreed. One more thing, bring me my wooden sword, Rail said confidently. He wet it in the bathroom and placed it on his mother's forehead to lower her temperature. I think I've done all I can, Raid began. Young master, I've brought a healer, Jan shouted from the other room. Come in, asked the prince. What happened after you tasted the soup? Guan asked the healer. Very well, sir. Now let me check, the doctor responded. Fortunately, the poisoning wasn't fatal, and there's a chance of recovery. The poison seems to be spreading throughout her body. The doctor placed 2 fingers on the inside of her wrist. She's okay, Ian sighed in relief. Thank God she's not in danger. Nothing threatening, said the doctor. But what about her bleeding mouth? Beck reasoned. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Rally asked Ian. Yes, young master. I also believe there's a high probability of an assassination attempt on the lady's life. The servant responsible for serving you and the lady has already been detained. We hope her interrogation begins soon. We'll have to investigate and find out who's responsible. At the moment, we know nothing. Excuse me, young master. I should have been more careful. If I had noticed anything suspicious, this wouldn't have happened, Yen regretted. Ian, remember when I told you about the other world I sometimes dream about? Rail began. Well, there's a saying in that world, he asked, surprising the old man. Don't wake up while it's calm, responded the hero smugly. Thanks for the sword, I'm leaving. I need to talk to someone now. Before Ian could finish. Take care of your mother, please. Beck left the room. In this life, I've only dreamt of one thing, that is to live happily and carefree beside someone I love. The favorite smile of Rab, that of a healthy mother, appeared in his mind. But, the prince whispered to himself, someone dared to take away my last wish. He was furious now, seeing his own mother's astonished face and the trickle of blood flowing from her mouth. Who do I see? He turned to the woman in the purple dress. Then I'll have to resort to my sword again, and I was looking for you, he addressed Orly with joy. But this time I'll take my sword not as a warrior, and not even for the sake of the good. Orly! Shouted Beck. The woman in front of him turned around displeased. But for the sake of your only wish. The enemy disliked this encounter, and limited herself to silence. Hello, Rai, how are you? The woman turned around playfully. Lazy sword master, she boasted. My business is better than ever, the third prince replied nonchalantly. And thanks to you, I'm not the only one doing well. Orly tensed visibly. Her face no longer wore a pleasant smirk. Now even my mother, for example. We'd like to thank you. Rayleigh continued. My boy. Orly laughed playfully. I own the castle. I do my best for all of you. I'm very worried about Iris because her son has a bad reputation, and everyone mocks him and calls him the lazy swordmaster. I see the lazy swordmaster has grown. Now he holds a wooden sword, mocked the woman. Some things haven't. I can smell the soup my mother used to eat from you. Is there something you want to tell me? Raleigh asked with a smug smile on his face. You have a keen sense. You're right. I was in the kitchen before dinner. The butler smiled. Ha ha, that's not like you, ma'am. The boy laughed. It's curious that you say this because you're the one acting very strangely right now. Orly turned around. There's a sign that when you try to change, it's sudden death. It's better to keep silent and not try to muddy the waters as you've been doing all this time. The woman is gone. It's already night. What have you found out about Raleigh? Orly asked after gathering herself. After leaving you, ma'am, she went to the yard to train, replied the servant. To the yard? Well, I'm glad I sent you to watch him, said the unfortunate woman as she sipped her tea. Yes, I noticed that he can't even hold a sword properly. Of course, what else could you expect from a lazy swordmaster? Orly boasted. A pathetic little dog dares to speak to me in such a disrespectful manner. There's no point in waiting any longer to finish what you started tonight, she ordered the servant. Yes, ma'am. Trying to go unnoticed will be easy, reflected the servant. At first, he seemed completely harmless, but later I felt that he realized he was being watched. It was as if he was patiently waiting for my actions to catch me. Why are you standing there? Orly was angry. Go and do it. Yes, ma'am. A violet shadow passed quickly through the hallway. Rael's room is just around the corner, commented the servant. I was waiting for you. Rael sat up, looking at the waiter intently. I heard the sound and was horrified because I saw a bit of fire in the guy's eyes. I practiced and then waited for you in the hallway. You took your time, Raleigh said with a smile. How couldn't I sense his presence? The servant was horrified. Raleigh jumped from the ceiling, but the servant managed to dodge him. But he hasn't changed. Maybe he located me on purpose, reflected the servant. Ah, the servant was horrified, noticing the gap in the floor where the third prince had just struck. It's a single blow, said the servant. Wake up, Raleigh, he said. You're distracted. Raleigh flew at him with wild fire in his eyes and a smirk of self-satisfaction. You've come to kill me, Rael asked, wielding his wooden sword at the servant. By Lady Orly's order. The wooden and iron swords clashed. The wild face of Rael and the frightened eyes of the servant were literally inches apart. How are you? Began the servant. You've wasted a lot of money and all for nothing, Raleigh interrupted. A mercenary who can't even resist a wooden sword, the servant said. Raleigh snatched the sword from the servant's hands with a slight movement, and it fell to the ground with a loud crash. The enemy was terrified. Damn it! The servant panicked. Raleigh swung his weak sword at him, stopping near the window against the light. Only his red eyes and silhouette were visible now. A quiet disco night. Peaceful night. Jan opened the door and entered Rael's room. Young master, you're here? Riley rested with a book on his face. Apparently he had read it before. The third prince groaned lazily. What's it about? Said the prince. Sir, a corpse was found in the mansion, Ian replied tensely. Riley looked tiredly from the book. I thought it was serious. Count and Pelly don't have many enemies, yelled the old man. It's not just a corpse. It's the corpse of a murderer. He managed to get into the castle somehow. How did he die? One servant asked another. His neck is broken, she replied. They were quite far from the body. Lady Orly was also beside her, biting her gloves in irritation. And right in front of Lady's room, added one of the servants. The news of Lady Eris's poisoning had reached Count and Pele. You did a great job helping Lady Eris. Young master, I'm just saying it's not a time to relax. You shouldn't be alone. We don't know if there are more murderers on the estate. I don't know about the others, but you, Raid began. Let's be honest. I don't know if you can defend yourself. Riley stood up. Yan, I can fend for myself, but you better watch my mother. He turned to the old man, but Ian didn't get a chance to start. And one more thing, Riley interrupted. Here, he handed him a piece of paper. I've written a list of herbs to make a potion for Mom. This should help her. But when will you? Jan started. Do you think I'm only good for relaxing? The prince smiled. I didn't waste time. Go check on your mother, please. And you, young master? Asked the old man. I'll go soon, but in the meantime, I have things to do, replied the prince. A wooden and aluminum sword appeared from under the prince's sofa. Have you checked the entire estate? Count asked. Yes, father. We've looked everywhere, began the first prince. But, finished the second prince, he came unarmed with the mark of a master swordsman. What arrogance! Fapol got angry. Perhaps someone from the mansion helped him. Judging by his clothes, he could be from a thieves' or assassins' guild. Maybe we should investigate. In the same room, with her back to her ex-husband and children, sat Lady Orly. First, check the village of Yipa, Count asked his sons. I'll find those who dare to defy our great family. I'll kill them. He couldn't contain his anger. Damn it. How did things come to this? Said Orly nervously. And where did the murderer's dagger go? Someone on the estate now has that dagger. How is Mom? Riley was in the morning, standing by the tree where the doctor confirms that the lady is the patient's mother. Well answered. They said thanks to the potion I prescribed today, he is feeling much better. I'm glad to hear you're improving, but in that case, I'll keep sleeping. Riley was already lying on the grass, but the old man interrupted him. Young master, please listen to me. Now is the time to lift your sword. You can't just swing it a couple of times and give up. Ian sank into the grass next to the prince. You need to know how to lose. Riley kept tapping his finger. I can fight with a stick, for example. The third prince was lying on the grass, staring at the branch. I noticed that the fruit is ripe. Please take one for me, and you too, Ian. What are you talking about, young master? We have plenty of fruit in the mansion. You can eat it whenever you want. When he looked up, Ian realized Riley wasn't talking about fruit. It turned out the dagger in question was a dagger that shone on one of the branches. Quick to realize, Riley rejoiced. What are you doing? You didn't want fruit? He asked joyfully. No, not now, young master. Ian picked up a stone from the ground. Then with a soft snap of his fingers, he pulled the cold weapon from the tree. With his other hand, he skillfully caught the falling sword. I don't think it's a fruit, said Riley naively. How did it get here? Ian wondered. What is that? Asked the third prince. A dagger, answered the old man. It has the same symbolism as seen in the knives of the assassin dead under the moonlight of the deep night.